Today's top stories are:
Commonwealth leaders have met in London today and decided that Prince Charles will succeed the Queen as its head.
the hostile environment immigration policy has been blamed for the Windrush scandal.
Arsene Wenger is set to leave Arsenal at the end of the season after 22 years in charge.
A YouTube study shows that emojis are causing a serious decline in English skills.
That and more this afternoon on City News.
Hello and welcome to City News. I am Aaliyah Harris.
And I'm Jack Grogan-Fenn.
This week, the government has become embroiled in a scandal over the legal status of Windrush generation immigrants. Our reporters have the latest on the story.
Good afternoon, my name is Melissa Pereira and this is City News. Earlier this week, the government has been asked to apologise after the Windrush generation has been declared illegal migrants. The Windrush generation has been treated with deportation, have been denied NHS services and have also lost their jobs due to the hostile environment policy. The hostile environment policy was created when Theresa May was Home Secretary in 2012. So, what is next for the Windrush generation?
From Amnesty, one of the big concerns we've got about is the Windrush generation and the kind of rights that they've had. They've obviously been in the UK for 50 years. It's a phenomenally long length of time. To be facing the kind of immigration issues they are now is something that's a big concern. It shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be the case. And Amnesty is looking quite firmly into those cases, and we're asking the government to look into this on a much more serious level. I mean, it opens up a much bigger issue about immigration and how people view and respect immigrants and refugees in the UK anyway, and we hope that that really helps open up the eyes for the whole general public to really start taking these issues much more seriously and think about the human costs, because after all we're talking about human individuals, people that are walking down your own streets, in your own schools. They're people just like everyone else, and we need to be having that caring consideration that sadly I think has been absent for far too long. We need to be thinking about who are the people behind those original policies, where do they originally come from, who's the one espousing those policies of hatred, pushing that lines about immigrants and migrants and creating the fear and the hatred that doesn't need to exist. Ultimately, that's come down to some of these politicians and leaders who are now trying to make those apologies. They've got to act much more firmly, show much more compassion, and try and bring communities together. At the moment, we've seen, historically, the last few years, we've seen a rhetoric that is about dividing communities, about splitting communities, but not about bringing people together, not really getting the understanding about where these issues and these concerns have come from. That is complete naivety. It's playing into the race card politics, playing into simple, basic, core politics of hatred that isn't necessary. You look at those people getting automatic status, but you look at it as being part of a wider context about the people that are in the UK, about really providing them with the rights and responsibilities that they should be having by being members of British society. We shouldn't be thinking about it as being a them and us culture. It shouldn't matter about the colour of your skin. It shouldn't matter about the background you've come from. If you're here in the UK and you're helping the economy and you're helping the British society, then by all means you should have that right to stay. The simple solution is obviously offering right to remain for all of the Windrush generation, and that's the very simple bottom line, isn't it?
Changes in business tax have left many small businesses facing an uncertain future. Our reporter Estefania Perez has this report for us.
Business rates have risen almost 50% in the borough of Islington, following the government's reevaluation of rates in April 2017. Small business owners in the area have felt squeezed by these changes, with some of them telling us that they have been struggling as a result. Islington Council have already tried to remedy these issues, with council bosses meeting in order to suggest a new affordable workspace strategy. This strategy will promote the building of affordable workspaces across the borough. However, these changes are yet to be approved.
It's definitely unpleasant that they went up, but then again, what can you do? Honestly, we're not really sure where that money actually goes. Because honestly, at this point, what do we actually use the council for as a business? We don't use them for pretty much anything. It seems like a lot of decisions are not really thought through in the long term whenever they make changes. So it's the fact that it's a bit unpredictable, that next year they may come up with a different tax to put on a business. Like at the moment, it's the takeaway coffee tax.
think one of the major ways it's affected me is the fact that you've got businesses closing down around us. So we had a huge flood in Islington in December 2016, which affected us badly, and then the increase in the rates has affected us. It hit my profit margin quite badly. When I first took the property on, the valuation, the rateable value was 12,000, and then they raised it to 17,000. So it's quite an increase. But in my opinion, if they reduce the rents, reduce the rates, they wouldn't have the issue in the first place. Particularly along here, we've tried to keep it as independent as possibly can, so we don't have any chains along here at the moment. I think it's austerity is where it's all started from. I think the government, this current government, haven't thought about the big picture and what the long-term effect is going to be on business. You see on Upper Street, we've got lots of squatters in buildings now. So instead we had a problem just a little bit further down the passage, which have now got boarded up shops to stop the squatters going in there. The council are now working with the landlords to remove these people. But in my opinion, if they reduce the rents, reduce the rates, they wouldn't have the issue in the first place, because you'd have a buzzing high street.
The significant rise in the business rates has clearly affected many small businesses here in Islington. Shopkeepers have expressed their fears for their ability to survive, as costs keep on rising year after year and the spending habits of customers change due to the uncertainty generated by Brexit. Many more have expressed their confusion as to who really benefits from these business rates, citing they receive nothing in return for the tax. If this trend continues, which many fear it will, then more shops could face closure and find themselves replaced by national and international chains, hurting the vibrancy and local culture of places like Islington.
Yesterday, Boris Johnson called for an increase in stop and search powers to combat the knife crime in London. After an increase in knife crime cases, this follows the recent and fatal stabbings in London, one of which that took place on Monday. Sammy Sidham, aged 18, was the capital's third case of being knifed to death in just 2 days. Amelia Green has the report.
The last month has seen a spike in knife crime in London. Yesterday afternoon, a woman in Hoxton was stabbed in a lift. This is another incident that has been added to a growing list. In 2016, The Guardian reported that many youth centres in the UK were closing due to cuts to funding. Here at the Ring Cross Centre in Islington, they aim to help young people who have previously been homeless or have been introduced to crime. Savas Panas, the CEO of the community group The Pillion Trust, believes that centres like the Ring Cross are needed to include young people in social activities and to stop them going into crime.
We used to have, in 2010, before the government withdrew the money around youth services, we had over 45 youth centres referring in to our youth service. This year we've got none. So in 2018 there's no more referrals coming in. We've had to change our policy to do self-referrals and to go on social media where the young people can find us, and young people are now assessing themselves and referring themselves to our services. We're here. We don't get any funding from anybody. So it's not costing the government anything for us to be here. We have had to work out a self-generating model, so we're of no burden to our local authority, the GLA, or the mainstream government. I think for young people, it's also over the years and the changes in neighbourhoods and the overcrowding, the overbuilding, we have lost the sense of neighbourhood, neighbours and a community.
Although it is hard to feel optimistic about the future with the recent spike in knife crime, people like Savas Panas running centres like the Ring Cross are now providing Londoners with a bit more hope.
Commonwealth leaders have confirmed that Prince Charles should succeed the Queen as the head of the 53-nation body. Our reporter Phoenix Cronin has this report.
Prince Charles has officially been confirmed as the head of the Commonwealth after a meeting of the Commonwealth leaders today at Windsor Castle. Before this decision, we headed out to Buckingham Palace to speak to the public. Following the news that the Queen has publicly backed Prince Charles as the new head of the Commonwealth, we wanted to see what the people thought on the matter and if they thought he was a suitable applicant for this role. We asked the public what they thought about Prince Charles and if they were in favour of him becoming the head of the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that he's basically shown himself to be a good guy. Many years ago he used to take a bit of stick and ridicule But people are coming around to his way of thinking these days and all sorts of things, whether it's environmental, architectural. He's quite a serious player, actually, and he'll take it very seriously and he'll try to add value in the role.
Its head should presumably be by some sort of process, perhaps an election of some kind or a process that arises at an agreement, probably drawing from a shortlist. I don't see why that shouldn't include people from anywhere in the Commonwealth. And I think a key principle is that it shouldn't be a hereditary arrangement.
I just think maybe it would be more inspiring to have somebody who's full of youth, full of vigour, to take over the role and actually sort of be able to do things for a much longer period of time.
We also asked what they thought about the Commonwealth in general and if it's still appropriate today.
I think there's probably some element of colonialism that probably remains from it, and I think that it should maybe be reconfigured to make it more fair between countries. Yeah.
I think the foundations of it are from something that is thought of now negatively, but actually some of the opportunities it brings are quite good. Like watching the Commonwealth Games was really inspiring and really great.
A Sky data poll revealed that 44% of Britons think the Prince of Wales should take over from the Queen in the position, while 32% think it should instead rotate between representatives from other Commonwealth countries. 10% said neither and 14% answered don't know. However, since the decision has been finalised, the public will have to come to terms with the move. Prince Charles said just after the decision was made public, "For my part, the Commonwealth has been a fundamental feature of my life for as long as I can remember."
And now, Zaidan Maki has the sport for us.
After an illustrious career featuring 3 Premier League titles and 7 FA Cups, manager Arsene Wenger is leaving Arsenal. I went to the club's Emirates Stadium to find out more. Arsene Wenger has announced he will leave Arsenal at the end of the season. The Frenchman signed a new 2-year contract less than a year ago, but he will leave the club he has managed for nearly 22 years at the end of the season. A disappointing season is likely to see Arsenal miss out on a top 4 spot for the 2nd year in a row. However, they do have a chance of qualifying for the Champions League if they lift a Europa League trophy. We spoke to Arsenal fans about their thoughts on Wenger's departure.
It's coming as a shock to me. Finally, he's like stepping down after 22 years of reign in Arsenal. I remember last time he was really good. At one time when Arsenal won every game of 37 matches, it was the awesome moment of Arsenal.
I'm sad about this decision, but I think the Arsenal can grow more without this technique, because he was here for too much time.
I think it's a good idea. The players need to hear a fresh voice. He did well over time, and we appreciate what he did, but I think it's time now for him to move on in another aspect of Arsenal's administration, maybe.
Now the search will begin for the first new Arsenal boss in 22 years, following in the footsteps of some of football's greats. The FA Cup semi-finals return to Wembley this weekend, with 2 blockbuster ties in store. In the 5:15 kickoff tomorrow evening, Mauricio Pochettino's Spurs take on Jose Mourinho's Manchester United. The match is hugely important to both managers, providing their last chance to win silverware this season. In the other tie on Sunday, struggling Southampton face last year's beaten finalist Chelsea. Mark Hughes' side will be hoping to turn around a poor run of form to reach Southampton's first final since 2003. Lance Armstrong has settled a long-running lawsuit from the U.S. government. The disgraced cyclist has agreed to pay $5 million. The case could have cost Armstrong $100 million. He was accused of fraud by cheating while riding for publicly funded cycling team U.S. Postal. He said he was glad to have resolved the case and move forward with his life. And on Sunday morning, more than 39,000 runners will line up to take part in the London Marathon. The temperatures in the capital are set to break records for the race. Best of luck to everyone taking part. That's all the sport for now.
Still to come, we speak to Georgie Ray about 420 celebrations.
The latest on entertainment, and we investigate whether emojis are ruining how we speak.
See you after the break.
Welcome back to City News.
Today, London is holding its annual 420 event in Hyde Park. Every year on the 20th of April at 4:20 p.m, thousands gather to smoke marijuana. The gathering is an open protest to call on the government to legalise the drug. Police have issued warnings to people planning to smoke cannabis, reminding them that the Class B drug is still illegal despite the open display. 1,300 people have already pledged to attend on a Facebook event page, and a large police presence is expected.
420 is also known as Weed Day around the world. Cannabis was made illegal in the UK in 1928 under the Dangerous Drugs Act of 1920. Doctors were able to prescribe it for medical uses until 1971, when it was banned completely. But today, cannabis users will be smoking up in Hyde Park, behind me, in celebration of the Class B drug. So is it about time that the UK legalised cannabis?
I've been smoking dope for 43 years this year, and I don't intend to quit, and I think the country should get with the programme and legalise it. And let's face it, most of the country smoke anyway.
One concern of policymakers is marijuana's impact on teenage brain development. However, a recent study by the University of Pennsylvania found that the impact was overstated, and users could avoid the effects by abstaining from the drug for 72 hours.
Today is our day. I mean, 420, if people don't know, it means just medicating after work. I mean, the group of guys that always used to smoke after work at 420, they split up all over the world, and they always remember at 420 they're gonna medicate. So, I mean, that's the story I've heard. But other than that, I mean, cannabis needs to be legalised for loads of reasons. I mean, the medicinal side of it. I'm a true stoner, man. I'm about medicating every day, and there's a lot of hidden truth when it comes to cannabis regarding just day-to-day medicating or really like fighting cancer and other strong illnesses. So I think a lot of exposure needs to be given, and that's what makes me an activist, really. The police activity around here is normally really a lot. So that means times must be changing. I mean, it's got to be something to do with the tax or the system, or us being Great Britain, the only country with great in front of it. I mean, it's going to have to be a different system that fits UK pattern. So I think when Germany go legal and France go legal, we next.
Peter Reynolds from drug policy reform group Clear UK blames the government for the criminalisation of cannabis.
The biggest obstacle we have to any sort of reform in this country is one person, and that's Theresa May. You know, there are many MPs in the Conservative Party who now support reform, but Theresa May takes a particularly bigoted and ignorant view on all of drugs policy. I mean, she is the only world leader at present, with the exception of President Duterte of the Philippines, who is presently engaged in murdering his own citizens in his war. With the exception of him, Theresa May is the only world leader who is currently calling for the war on drugs to continue.
As long as cannabis remains illegal in the UK, police will be patrolling Hyde Park and other 420 events around the UK. Georgie Ray, City News.
Hi Georgie, thank you for coming in. As we've seen, the 420 protests are taking place today. Have the protests had any effect so far?
Well, so many people go to the event every year. It's physically impossible for police to actually control the event because of the vast amount of people who are there. So they do make an impact because it's so obvious that the event's happening.
And are protesters taking part at risk of arrest?
They really are. Arrests were made quite early today. Also in 2015, 50 people were arrested and 12 were detained as well. So there's definitely the risk that's there, but there's no actually standout reasons on who's going to be picked because there's so many people there you really don't know.
As it stands, what is the current penalty if citizens are found to be in possession of cannabis?
For possession, it is the maximum of a 5-year prison sentence, but you can also have a fine or a warning on the spot as well, so it's really dependent. If you have enough to be dealing, per se, the maximum is 14 years as well in prison.
And why do people think that the law should be renewed?
Well, Clear UK think that the whole legalisation of drugs really should happen, and the fact that if this goes through government, then also drug dealers don't need to be on the streets anymore. It also means that there will be a market for drugs, and it also makes it a lot more easy to regulate as well, and it controls it a lot more, and they think that it's safer for people as well at the same time.
And cannabis being a Class B drug, what are the differences between Class A, B and C drugs?
It's really based towards the harm that it can come to society and also the user. The time that you can have as a prison sentence or the unlimited fine is dependent on whether it's a Class A, which is the highest, or goes down to Class C. marijuana is a Class B drug, so that is basically just in the middle, so you have no idea. Prison sentences really vary from different people. It depends on how much you actually have at the time.
And did anything change during Tony Blair's Labour government that affected cannabis and its regulations?
No, nothing massively changed, but today when we went and we spoke to people who were taking part in 420, they really want it to be legalised, and they're very positive about the situation as well.
Okay, thank you, Georgie.
A new survey by YouTube has shown that English language skills have dropped since the arrival of emojis. Megan Cullum has more on the story.
A recent study by YouTube has shown that the use of emojis is worsening our language skills. First invented in Japan in 1999, emojis have become a global phenomenon, even inspiring their own movie. I spoke to the Islington Language School to see what they think. So do you think that emojis are harming language?
I don't think so overall, because I think an emoji actually can help an interpretation of a message. So by putting a smiley face on the end or a sad face, I think it actually helps to reinforce the message sometimes, especially if a student hasn't got as much language as a native speaker. I think they look as an emoji as a way of just clarifying what they've written.
So you don't kind of think, because an emoji is like a shortcut, you don't kind of think that this would stop them from learning the original words, kind of suggest how they feel? So you...
Well, possibly, but I think, I mean, to be honest, language learners that come to London, they're very keen to learn. So they're not really looking for ways out of learning new words or expressing themselves. I mean, the more vocabulary the teachers here can offer, the better, and they're very enthusiastic and they want to learn. So I don't think the students that come to our school, I don't think they would use it in that way as avoiding trying to learn, because they're usually very keen to learn. However, I think perhaps lots of them, and myself as well, and everybody, I think we do tend to use them just to cut out perhaps writing, oh, I'm not feeling too happy today, you might just put in a little sad face. So maybe they use it in that way. But I wouldn't say that it's really affecting the language learning at all. I think, in fact, like I said before, it helps to reinforce the meaning.
Now we go to Camille Kabagi for the latest entertainment news.
Ariana Grande has released her first single and music video since the Manchester attack, which killed 22 people last May. The new single is called No Tears Left to Cry and features lyrics which reference to the attack and her One Love benefit concert. She pays tribute to Manchester by featuring a worker bee in the music video, which is the symbol of the city. The song premiered worldwide on BBC Radio 1 at 5 a.m. this morning. Millie Bobby Brown has been named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. She's the youngest person ever to make the list. The 14-year-old rose to fame on the hit Netflix show Stranger Things. She joins Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and Cardi B on this year's list. The list features people who have had both a positive and negative influence on the world in the past year. Other public figures included were US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Prosecutors have said that no criminal charges will be filed over the death of American singer Prince. The singer died from an accidental overdose in April 2016, and an investigation was launched to the cause of his death. After 2 years, it was found that there was no evidence of intentional wrongdoing. The inquest found that Prince died from an overdose of fentanyl, and counterfeit pills were found at the scene. Actress Rachel Weisz has confirmed that she's pregnant with her and her husband Daniel Craig's first child together, at the age of 48 and 50 respectively. The Hollywood actress announced that happy news to the New York Times, revealing that the secret to her glowing skin is pregnancy. And finally, Kanye West has announced that he will be releasing 2 new albums this June. This will be Kanye's 8th solo studio album. His last album was The Life of Pablo, released in 2016. He announced the news on Twitter in a series of tweets. He said it will feature 7 songs and will be released on the 1st of June. The second album is in collaboration with American rapper Kid Cudi, which will be released a week after, under their group name Kids See Ghosts. The news marked Kanye's comeback to Twitter after he had taken an 11-month break from the site. And that's all for your entertainment news for today.
Thank you, Camille. Now we go to Alice Price, who's on the streets of London for the latest on your weather this weekend.
Comparing temperatures from last week to this week, it's like we've gone from midwinter to midsummer. Last week we had a low temperature of 5 degrees in the north, and this week we've had a high of 29.1 degrees yesterday in St James's Park in London. This week it will continue to be warm, although there will be cloud and showers in the north and in Scotland. In the north, today there'll be temperatures of between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius, whereas in London we will have temperatures of up to 28 degrees. Moving on to tonight, there'll be mist and fog in the southeast, which will clear by the morning, and in Scotland there'll be temperatures as low as 3 degrees tonight, which means there will be frost on the grass on Saturday morning. On Saturday there will be sunny spells, although be prepared for showers with hail and thunder as they move in from the west, and on Sunday it'll be a fresher and cooler day, with temperatures in central London being between 20 and 21 degrees Celsius. If you're running the marathon, please be prepared to stay hydrated, also, as although it is not 29 degrees, it will still be a very warm day. If you're not running the marathon, make sure you get out inside and enjoy the sunshine while it lasts. And that is all from the weather. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Alice. Before we leave you, here are Friday's top headlines. Prince Charles is set to become the next head of the Commonwealth.
The Conservatives' hostile immigration policy has been blamed for the Windrush scandal.
And that's all we have time for. Thank you for being with us today.
Enjoy your weekend, and goodbye.